Gaseous exchange in mammals. Gaseous exchange in mammals occurs primarily in the lungs, which are specialized organs adapted for this function. When a mammal inhales, air is drawn into the nasal passages, where it is filtered, warmed, and moistened. From there, the air travels down the trachea and into the bronchial tubes, which branch off into progressively smaller airways and ultimately to the alveoli. The alveoli are small, thin-walled sacs that are the site of gaseous exchange in the lungs. Each alveolus is surrounded by a network of blood vessels called capillaries. Oxygen diffuses across the walls of the alveoli and into the bloodstream, where it binds to hemoglobin in red blood cells and is transported to the cells of the body for use in cellular respiration. At the same time, carbon dioxide produced by cellular respiration is carried in the bloodstream back to the lungs, where it diffuses out of the capillaries and into the alveoli. The carbon dioxide is then exhaled from the body during expiration. The efficiency of gaseous exchange in the lungs is facilitated by many adaptations, including the large surface area of the alveoli, the thinness of the alveolar walls, the high blood flow to the lungs, and the concentration gradients of oxygen and carbon dioxide. The respiratory system in mammals also includes protective mechanisms, such as the mucous lining and cilia, that help to filter out potentially harmful particles and microorganisms and prevent damage to the lungs. The lungs are the primary organs of the respiratory system in vertebrates. They are paired, cone-shaped organs located in the chest cavity, protected by the rib cage and separated by the mediastinum. The lungs are made up of millions of tiny air sacs called alveoli, which are surrounded by a network of blood vessels called capillaries. When air is inhaled, it travels through the nasal passages, pharynx, larynx, trachea, bronchi, and bronchioles until it reaches the alveoli, where gaseous exchange occurs. The alveoli are surrounded by a very thin wall, which allows for efficient diffusion of gases between the air and the blood. Oxygen from the air diffuses across the alveolar wall and into the bloodstream, while carbon dioxide from the bloodstream diffuses into the alveoli to be exhaled from the body. The lungs are protected by various mechanisms, such as the mucous lining of the respiratory tract, which traps particles and microorganisms, and the cilia, which move the mucus and other debris out of the respiratory tract. The lungs also have various defense mechanisms, including immune cells, that help to fight off infections and other harmful substances. Overall, the lungs play a crucial role in the process of breathing and maintaining a healthy body. They provide the body with the oxygen it needs for cellular respiration, while removing carbon dioxide and other waste products from the body. Figure 5.2 Nasal cavity and lungs. Mechanism of breathing. The mechanism of breathing is a complex process that involves the contraction of muscles that surround the lungs and the expansion and contraction of the thoracic cavity chest cavity to create changes in air pressure within the lungs. When we inhale, the diaphragm, a dome-shaped muscle beneath the lungs, contracts and moves downward, creating negative pressure in the thoracic cavity. This negative pressure pulls air into the lungs through the trachea and bronchial tubes. At the same time, the muscles between the ribs, intercostal muscles, contract and lift the ribs, expanding the chest cavity and further increasing the negative pressure. This allows even more air to be drawn into the lungs. During exhalation, the diaphragm and intercostal muscles relax, allowing the chest cavity to shrink and forcing the air out of the lungs. This process is aided by the elastic recoil of the lung tissue. The amount of air we inhale and exhale can be controlled by changes in the contraction strength of the muscles involved, known as respiratory muscles. These muscles are controlled by the respiratory centers in the brainstem, which receive input from sensors throughout the body that detect carbon dioxide and oxygen levels in the blood. Overall, the mechanism of breathing allows us to take in necessary oxygen and expel carbon dioxide, allowing the body to maintain appropriate levels of these gases and continue to carry out cellular respiration. Fig. 5.3. Movement of ribs and diaphragm during breathing. Gaseous exchange across the alveoli. Gaseous exchange across the alveoli occurs when oxygen from the air in the alveoli diffuses into the bloodstream, and carbon dioxide from the bloodstream diffuses into the alveoli. This diffusion occurs due to a concentration difference between the two gases. When air is breathed in, it contains a higher concentration of oxygen than the blood in the capillaries around the alveoli. This concentration gradient drives the diffusion of oxygen from the alveoli into the bloodstream. Oxygen then binds to hemoglobin in the red blood cells and is transported to the body's tissues. Conversely, the carbon dioxide concentration is higher in the bloodstream than in the air in the alveoli. This gradient allows carbon dioxide to diffuse from the bloodstream into the alveoli, where it can be exhaled out of the body. To facilitate this diffusion, the alveolar walls are extremely thin, consisting of only a single layer of squamous cells, and are surrounded by a network of capillaries. The large surface area of the alveoli and the capillaries also helps to increase the rate of diffusion. Overall, gaseous exchange across the alveoli is a vital process that allows for oxygen to be delivered to the body's tissues and carbon dioxide to be removed from the body. Figure 5.4. The lung at 3 stages of magnification. Figure 5.5. Gaseous exchange in the alveolus. Adaptations of alveoli to their functions. The alveoli are specialized structures in the lungs that are adapted for their functions of facilitating gaseous exchange between the air in the lungs and the bloodstream. Some of the key adaptations of alveoli to their functions include 1. Large surface area. Alveoli are tiny, spherical structures that are highly numerous and densely packed in the lungs. This gives them a large surface area which allows for efficient diffusion of gases between the air in the lungs and the bloodstream. 2. Thin walls. The walls of alveoli are very thin, consisting of only a single layer of squamous cells, and are surrounded by a network of capillaries. This thinness facilitates the rapid diffusion of gases across the alveolar wall. 3. Moist lining. The inner surface of alveoli is moist, which helps to dissolve gases and allows for more efficient exchange of gases between the air and the bloodstream. 4. Elasticity. The alveoli are highly elastic, which allows them to stretch and expand when air is inhaled, and then recoil back to their original shape when air is exhaled. This elasticity helps to maintain the structural integrity of the alveoli and prevents them from collapsing during exhalation. 5. Rich blood supply. The alveoli are surrounded by a network of capillaries that provides a rich blood supply. This allows for efficient uptake of oxygen from the lungs into the bloodstream and the removal of carbon dioxide from the bloodstream into the lungs. Overall, the adaptations of alveoli to their functions allow for efficient and effective gaseous exchange between the air in the lungs and the bloodstream, which is critical for the body's respiratory and metabolic processes. Factors affecting gaseous exchange in mammals. Several factors can affect gaseous exchange in mammals, including 1. Surface area. A larger surface area of alveoli results in increased gaseous exchange. Damage to the lungs or reduction in surface area due to lung disease can result in decreased gaseous exchange. 2. Thickness of alveolar walls. An increase in the thickness of the wall between the alveoli and capillaries due to scarring or edema can result in decreased gaseous exchange. 3. Partial pressure gradients. The difference in partial pressure of oxygen and carbon dioxide between the air and the blood is important for gaseous exchange. Hypoxia or low oxygen levels in the air or blood can result in decreased gaseous exchange. 4. Blood flow. An adequate blood supply and a proper balance between ventilation and blood flow are required for efficient gaseous exchange. Decreased blood flow due to cardiovascular disease, blood clots, or other circulatory disorders can reduce gaseous exchange. 5. Lung compliance. The ability of the lungs to expand and contract is important for efficient gaseous exchange. Reduced lung compliance due to fibrosis or other restrictive lung diseases can result in decreased gaseous exchange. 6. Environmental factors. Polluted air, smoking, or high altitudes can all affect gaseous exchange by reducing the partial pressure of oxygen or increasing the partial pressure of carbon dioxide. 7. Age. The lung function can decline with age, leading to decreased gaseous exchange. Overall, any condition or disease that affects the lungs or the circulatory system can affect gaseous exchange in mammals. Maintaining a healthy lifestyle and avoiding environmental pollutants can help to support efficient gaseous exchange. Revision exercise 5.2. 1. In which form is carbon dioxide transported in blood? Carbon dioxide is transported in the blood in 3 main forms. 1. Dissolved CO2. A small fraction of carbon dioxide is transported dissolved in the blood plasma. 2. Carbonic acid, H2CO3. Carbon dioxide reacts with water in the blood to form carbonic acid, which dissociates into bicarbonate, HCO3, and hydrogen ions H+. 3. Bound to hemoglobin. A small amount of carbon dioxide binds to hemoglobin, the same protein that carries oxygen in the blood. This forms carbaminohemoglobin and assists in the transport of carbon dioxide. These three forms of carbon dioxide transport in blood are important for maintaining a balance of carbon dioxide in the body and eliminating it from tissues where it is produced. 2. List 3 adaptations of the alveoli to their functions. The alveoli are the functional units of the lungs responsible for gas exchange. To perform their functions efficiently, they have evolved several adaptations, including 1. Large surface area. The alveoli have a large surface area, with an estimated total surface area of around 70 square meters in adult humans. This promotes efficient gas exchange by maximizing the contact between oxygen and carbon dioxide and the pulmonary capillaries. 2. Thin walls. The walls of the alveoli and the surrounding capillaries are very thin, with a thickness of only a few micrometers. This enables the gases to diffuse across the membrane rapidly, allowing for rapid exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. 3. Moist environment. The alveoli are lined with a thin layer of fluid that helps to keep the surface moist. This promotes efficient gas exchange by allowing gases to dissolve and diffuse easily through the membrane. Overall, these adaptations of the alveoli optimize their function of oxygenation and elimination of carbon dioxide in the body. 3. How does carbon dioxide concentration in blood affect the rate of gaseous exchange in mammals? The concentration of carbon dioxide (CO2) in the blood has a direct effect on the rate of gaseous exchange in mammals because it regulates the respiratory rate. When the concentration of CO2 in the blood increases, chemoreceptors in the walls of blood vessels and the brainstem detect this change and send signals to the respiratory centers in the brainstem to increase the rate and depth of breathing. This increases the removal of CO2 from the body and increases the uptake of oxygen O2 by the lungs. Conversely, when the concentration of CO2 in the blood decreases, the respiratory centers are signaled to decrease the rate and depth of breathing. This slows down the removal of CO2 and the uptake of O2, leading to a decrease in the rate of gaseous exchange. In summary, an increase in the concentration of CO2 stimulates an increase in the rate of gaseous exchange, while a decrease in the concentration of CO2 leads to a decrease in the rate of gaseous exchange. This feedback loop allows mammals to maintain a balance of gases in the body. 4. Distinguish between inspiration and expiration. Inspiration and expiration are the two phases of the breathing process that occur in mammals. 1. Inspiration, also known as inhalation. It is the process of taking air into the lungs from the environment. During inspiration, the diaphragm and external intercostal muscles contract, causing the ribcage to move up and out and the diaphragm to move downwards. This increases the volume of the thoracic cavity and decreases the air pressure inside the lungs, creating a negative pressure gradient that draws air in through the nose and mouth. 2. Expiration, also known as exhalation. It is the process of expelling air from the lungs to the environment. During expiration, the diaphragm and external intercostal muscles relax, allowing the ribcage to move down and in, and the diaphragm to move upwards. This decreases the volume of the thoracic cavity and increases the air pressure inside the lungs, creating a positive pressure gradient that pushes air out through the nose and mouth. In summary, during inspiration, air is drawn into the lungs due to a negative pressure gradient created by the expansion of the thoracic cavity, while during expiration, air is expelled from the lungs due to a positive pressure gradient created by the contraction of the thoracic cavity.